Hello, everybody. This is Janina, and I'm very happy to introduce to you today Bob Schwarz, otherwise known as Robert Schwarz, who is an expert and very well known in the energy psychology field, former executive director of the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology and as I remember, the author of Tools for Transforming Trauma. But I, of course, first became familiar with your name because you were back in the 90s. You were recording really what felt like hypnosis tapes, but they were probably energy tapes.
No, they were hypnosis tapes. Yes, yeah. The tool, yeah, that was the Tools for Mastering Trauma series. Yep.
Right. And they were so helpful. You know, back in those early days, we were just, sort of throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what would stick because we didn't have trauma treatments in those days. And and those tapes were so, so helpful to people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know that energy psychology is not just focused on trauma.
Right.
It's focused on a huge array of issues. Um, well, actually, maybe we should start. I know what energy psychology is. Maybe I should start by asking you to explain to our listeners what energy psychology is.
So, well, energy psychology, the broad spectrum of it there are a family of approaches that work with the body's energy system. So it's either the meridians or or chakras, where people focus on the same things that anybody else would focus on in terms of trauma or other things. You focus on specific events that are troubling or symptoms, and then along with various other things that you do as a psychotherapist, we're activating the body's energy system. So like if it was EMDR, you would be doing bilateral stimulation. If you were doing vagal stuff, you would focus maybe on the vagus nerve. Here we're focusing on the energy system, although there's going to be a correlation with vagal response. I mean, in my
Yeah,
opinion, you're definitely affecting vagal tone and those kinds of things.
definitely.
So it's a body-oriented, a somatic, I put it in a mind-body oriented approach. And
Yeah.
along with when we were mentioning hypnosis back in the days, I liked hypnosis because it was a great way to get an additional way of communicating with the whole person's system. And the way I view it is energy psychology, and of which EFT is the one that most people know about. Tapping it is another way of getting access to that system.
Right. So that's the emotional freedom technique,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And then there's
There's,
TFT.
there's thought field therapy. Yeah.
Uh,
TFT. It's like TFT, EFT. You have to have letters. It seems to be a thing for letters.
oh, of course, you
Body.
gotta have letters.
You gotta have letters. Yeah.
Right. And I first became familiar with energy psychology because TFT suddenly became very popular,
Yes.
but it was so complex. And I found EFT. I had a colleague who was an EFT trainer
Hmm.
who offered to train a small group of us rather than a whole class. And it was just so simple and user friendly that it was easy to imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
I was originally trained in TFT, and there are certain advantages to it, but it's so different in a lot of ways for standard therapy for therapists. EFT feels very much more like a psychotherapy with this particular enhancement of stimulating a set of acupuncture points.
right,
Yeah,
right.
I
And the
think
sort
it's
of
easier for more.
acupuncture points, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Right.
there's some like, corner of your eyebrow, outside of your eye, you know. And these are all points that maybe you would use kidney 27, um, if you were an acupuncturist, but you only use, and it's a very limited number of points that are accessible, points
Yeah.
that clients can touch themselves. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I don't know if you use the same wording, but when my clients would focus on the symptom and tap while saying, um, even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. They were like, but I don't completely love and accept myself. And then I'd have to say, it's okay. You don't have to believe the words. You just have to say them.
Yeah, we try to have people actually try to believe them some. It's better if you can. There are modifications. You can say, I'm working on accepting myself. Um, it's because part of the whole point, I mean, I've really sort of been talking about this Zen approach to it, where I say, the most unusual thing about EFT is the acupuncture points, and the least interesting thing about EFT is the acupuncture points. Because as practitioners, after you learn the points, it's the same thing, and it's really more about how it gets applied and how you work with folks. So it just doesn't become, it goes beyond like this little what some people I think of as this sort of cute trick, um, which I don't see it that way. I really see it much as an integration.
Right. I certainly don't see it as a cheap trick
No, I know
either.
you don't. I understand. But people, oh, it's the points, it's the points. It's like, well, there's a lot more going on. Like
Absolutely.
when you sit there and say, even though I've got this problem, I deeply and completely accept myself, you're already sort of creating a mindful position because you're separating from the body. You're activating self-compassion, of like from Christine Neff's work. You're doing a lot of very interesting things, and that's just the beginning of it.
Right. Right. And that's why what I found is if I said, you don't have to believe the words, actually, what would happen is as clients said them over and over and over again, they began to believe them.
Right. Well, there is something to that too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Right.
Yes.
Instead of being this horrible, terrible idea.
Right.
And I remember, I mean, I certainly don't consider myself a skilled energy therapist, but uh, one of the things I was impressed by, I had a client who was very suicidal, and the only thing that worked for her was EFT.
Right.
So just through that whole crisis, which was
Yeah.
several weeks, I just said, every time you feel so suicidal, just do some tapping.
Right.
And uh, and she got through the crisis and
Right.
out the other side.
Right.
And then she said, "Okay, I'm not going to do any more of that tapping. That's only for emergencies."
Well, that's interesting because
I
yeah, so people do that all the time. They learn it in one context, and then they think I don't use it in another context.
right,
But actually, it can be used in a lot of different ways.
right would have been helpful
Yeah.
to her.
But it
It,
gave her some self-efficacy. It gave her something to do. It helped calm her down, and that's an important, certainly, in trauma. I mean, that's kind of phase one, right, of trauma treatment. Stability. Stabilize the system, and so that's an important aspect of using.
absolutely. I mean, I think stabilization is the most important phase of trauma treatment.
Well, if you don't have that,
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yeah. That was one of the lessons I learned from Judy Herman was, you know, it doesn't help to recover if you don't have a life.
absolutely true. Yes, that's back in the old days. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing mostly now?
So I'm doing a number of things. I'm still doing a lot of stuff with EFT. I'm continuing to try to expand it and help people understand that it's not just this thing over there, that it really can be part of an integrated approach to working with trauma. But the way I look at it, if you have an anxiety disorder, underneath the anxiety disorder are at least a bunch of small t traumas. There's always something underneath that's driving the negative belief somebody has. And
Mhm.
yes, we want to help people regulate, and if you're anxious you can just do some tapping, and it's and you can calm down. That's one level. That's like a phase one approach. But if you know, underneath that is, why is this person anxious? What do they believe? What's informing them? And you'll usually find some negative life event that has been stored in the body. And so hence we come back to whether you do EMDR or tapping, I don't really care. As long as there's some kind of body orientation. So that's what I'm sort of focusing on, helping people get a more integrated approach.
Right. And I don't think of it as body. I think of it as implicit memory. You're working with implicit memory rather than with events.
Okay, so say more, just so I'm clear about what you're referring
So
to.
implicit memory being the feeling and body memories
Okay,
that result from traumatic experiences. Because I think despite the decades of research showing that that event memories are not how the brain remembers trauma, and which is why I think you want to work through the body. Um, it's really the nonverbal implicit memories that cause suffering,
right,
whether it's anxiety or depression or
yes,
difficulties in relationships.
right. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing differently, that there is a
Yeah,
whole felt sense that has, you know, that's different. I always say the neocortex is highly overrated.
right. Well, and the neocortex goes offline when people are activated, so
Exactly
no
right.
help.
Yeah, I like to I tell people, yeah, when you get activated, you have an NFL moment. What the NFL stands for? No frontal lobe.
Oh, right. There you go. Right, right, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. And and it's so great for clients to have ways of working that don't require this frontal lobe that's not working.
right. It also helps therapists because, if you're working with clients and they're talking about really traumatic stuff, the therapist gets activated.
Mhm.
And so it helps the therapist body stay calm, which then kind of from a polyvagal point of view helps the client stay calm. So the whole system stays
Right.
calm so we can continue to move toward dealing with stuff. I talk a lot about, what Stephen Hayes talks about is emotional avoidance, right? We emotionally avoid things unconsciously, consciously, because we don't, and one of the reasons you avoid things is it's too much. So if you can find a way to kind of calm things down, then it's easier for people to stay in contact. So I think
Right.
it's a lot of what's going on when I work with folks or do demonstrations, and we're always sort of, we're doing tapping, but we're leaning in. So we're not trying to tell people to get rid of anything. That's people talk about, tap out that problem. Like, no, that's not the way to think.
Well, I always say to people, to get rid of it, you'd have to have brain surgery.
Yeah,
So unless unless you want to have significant parts of your brain removed,
right.
right?
So it's the blockness of it. It's again, I very focus on integration, like what Stephen Levine talks about. Animals, they just, pendulate and shake it off and off they go. But we like, okay, we're going to stick it in a box, put it in a corner, don't deal with it, and it stays stuck. So if
Mhm.
you can release it, then, things start to move. And yes, you're aware of what happens, but your body doesn't maintain that distortion, right? Or this implicit memory of it isn't so chock full of all the things that go on, all the activation, all the hormones, everything that happens organically when we are, overwhelmed or
Right. But we're
dysregulated,
triggered.
triggered. Yeah.
Yeah,
So people
yeah,
become a lot less triggered.
definitely.
Just stay there. So it does change the actual memory, if, in a memory reconsolidation way. At least that's my
So,
experience.
yes, I'm a big fan of memory reconsolidation, which we should acknowledge for those who are not familiar with it, is the work of Bruce Ecker. But it just fits so well with so many models.
Yes, it absolutely does. Mhm. And so I do that. I've also been focusing on coming up. I just recently worked on a project where I've kind of come up with 7 meta skills that cross, because I've been looking for ways to connect things across multiple positions. So I really looked at all the different things that I do and other people do. And so I have kind of came up with these 7 meta skills that seem to cross all of
Oh,
the different areas.
that's
So like,
great.
so like one of them is like, for instance, would be like it happens to be meta skill 3 is being curiously non-attached, which again, I don't think is anything new.
Well, it's very Buddhist.
It's very Buddhist, but it's also like psychodynamic, even hoverly attention. So, for instance, one of the things I've noticed with therapists when they're learning, whether in EFT and other things, they always worry about oh, getting it wrong,
Right.
right? And I used to, now I do demonstrations all the time. I used to be very afraid to doing demonstrations. And why? Because I was worried I would screw it up. I would hurt the client. I'd be shamed in front of people, whatever. It was always some kind of ego attachment to that kind of stuff. And so once I sort of, and I worked on once I let that go, it's always would work. Like I would just be curious. I wouldn't
Right.
be attached to whether I got to anything right away, so there was no rush. I wouldn't worry about it looking like an idiot. I would just be with the client, which that's
Yeah.
the other thing. It's right, and that skill goes right next to presence in the face of suffering, which is another of the meta skills. They go
Mm,
together really
yeah.
well. So those two things really allow you to be with somebody and do these various things. Like I just did a demonstration and the person uh, was worried, like she got down to like a suds of like a 1. And I thought, well, is there something still there? She said, yeah, I just think, I don't think this could ever go away. I said, okay. So we did a little tapping, even though I think we just leaned, whatever was there. And
Yeah.
then we tapped a little more. I said, what's up now? And she went, it's gone.
Right. I mean,
You know,
I think that is one of the best things about tapping is that you don't have to analyze the
no,
problem, right?
right.
All you have to do is be able to name it, focus on it. But what's
Do
great
this.
is you're not just focused on the problem, because most of us, if we have a problem, we're ruminating about it.
Yeah, it's a different,
You're having people focus on it in a mindful way
yeah,
and then having them tap.
right. And then whatever happens, happens. I mean, and then I was talking with someone that did CPT, and they were talking about how they use a Socratic method, which is fine. I mean, thousands of years old, but it's different. We're not trying to argue it or talk it away. We're just saying, let's see what happens. And
Right.
the funny thing is, it almost always goes to no, it's not almost, it always goes to the next level. Whatever needs to happen, happens. And if you let go of being worried about, oh, did I get there in time? Is it okay? You'll get there. And then you always get there a little quicker than you think. That's
Right.
what's kind of fun. And you feel, my experience is you feel like you're being guided, like stuff shows up. So it helps your intuition comes in more. It helps people connect with, what Dan Siegel, I think of as you connect with the plane of possibility.
Uh-huh.
Stuff wells up. It's
Right.
fascinating to me.
Right. Right.
Fun.
Absolutely, which it doesn't when we're trying to figure it out,
No, when you're trying to figure it out, it doesn't work so well. But
especially if you don't have a working prefrontal cortex and you're trying to think it out.
mhm.
So are you going to write about the meta skills?
Yes, I just did a course, so that's happening. And I mean, I've already written some just to do the course, but yes, I'm going to do more about it. Yes, by the time
Oh,
people see this, it may be out. I don't know.
oh, that's great. That's wonderful. That's something that I think a lot of therapists, I mean, it sounds like the meta skills are equally applicable to the therapist and to the client.
Oh, Oh, yeah. Oh, the meta skills are for the therapist, really, but they matter to the client too, right? That's a very, that's an interesting, yeah, because you're trying to inculcate really a kind of a worldview.
Right, right, right. But you're not talking about it, you're embodying it.
You're embodying it. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. I love it. Is curiosity in there too?
Yeah, it's curious non-attachment is one. So it's not just non-attached. Like I'm not attached. No, no, I'm curious too.
Right,
Yeah, so it's both. You have to be curious, but not attached to any specific outcome or
right,
way of
right.
thinking.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people go, well, I do that already. Great. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything new. The idea was to kind of say, okay, this is what everybody does. And what I have found is now that I've put words to this, I find I do it better. Like I'm
Mhm.
more clear myself, which is I found
Right.
interesting. Like, oh,
Right.
okay, I know what I'm doing now. But
Yeah,
it helps people. The goal is to help people be more intentional as practitioners.
right. Intentional but not attached. And
Intentional but not attached.
yeah, and I mean, I certainly think I, I recognize when I was able to not be attached to any outcome and I was just there being interested, um, it really changed. I mean, it really was an energetic change.
Right. It pretty much
Yeah,
changes.
it's like a
Pretty
flow
much changes
state.
everything. Excuse me?
It's like a flow state.
You know what? It's exactly a flow state. That's exactly right. It's a flow state. Yeah,
Yeah. And it feels good. It's much more fun to be a therapist in that state.
exactly right. And even, and the client has more fun too.
Right.
I'm just not a big, I like, you know, like humor. Even really terrible things, it doesn't have to be, and I mean, you're not trying to avoid the horror of it, but the irony is that when you don't avoid the horror, you kind of, you get a bigger perspective and it's easier to have fun and not take it so seriously
Right.
in a certain way. It doesn't define who you are.
Right. And it certainly doesn't help to relive the horror.
No,
So, so I think the idea that the therapist and the client have to go to the horror and re-experience it, think we know enough now to know that that isn't. the way to heal trauma.
No, no, nope, no, yeah.
And I agree. I mean, I earlier in my career, I got criticized for being too light about something so horrific. But more and more, I mean, clients like it, and fewer and fewer of my colleagues seem to be horrified by the idea of trauma being approached lightly.
Well, I'm with you. I've always felt this. I agree with you, and it's a little like I think of I always think of this Milton Erickson story of he was working with a guy. Milton Erickson just really is in the background of everything I do. But he was working with a guy who had trigeminal neuralgia, and so which is a pain disorder in the face. It's
And very painful. Yeah.
very painful. It's really one of those. You're right. It's horrible. I mean, people kill themselves over it.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so Erickson hypnotizes the guy, and he tells the guy he does whatever he does, and then he tells the guy, "All right," he goes, "All right, I want you now to take your right hand and slap it across your face," which is where the trigeminal neuralgia was, right? And as he does that, he says, "I want you to tap right," and he sits back and he kind of does this, kind of just lays back, and the commentary is that this was an indirect suggestion to say that nothing's, I'm calm, man, nothing's going to happen. So the guy hits his face and nothing happens. You know? And so I tell the story because I think when we sit there and kind of go, you know, are you, you know, then about the trauma, then the client goes, this like the kid, looks up at, falls down and hurts their knee, looks up at mom to see whether they should cry or not. It scares the client. It makes
Right.
them feel like they're in danger. It makes them feel like they're in danger, which is half the problem, right? Trauma, for the most part, psychological trauma, when it's, the event is over and they're still experiencing it, it means the body still thinks they're in danger.
Right.
They're still
Right.
getting a message you're in danger. So anything that helps send the message in an embodied way that you're not in danger anymore
Right.
is a good thing. And
Right.
people and therapists, I've seen it, you probably have too, when doing training, it's like they get like, I don't know if I can do this. And
Mhm.
they're scared. They're worried they're going to hurt the client, whatever is, they're worried they're just going to get out of
The,
control.
the worry is that the client will think their pain is being minimized,
Right.
which
But
I have in 44 years of laughing and smiling through trauma treatment sessions. I've never once had anyone complain that they felt laughed at or they felt minimized.
right. No, neither I. But I'm also assuming that you do it at the right time and the right place. Obviously,
Right.
you know,
Right.
timing counts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's so I'm kind of focused on that in my neck for the next decade is, working on helping therapists to get better at what they do. That's kind of what I'm planning.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
And playing more music and hanging out with my new grandkid.
Oh, sounds perfect. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good. I know for myself, it's good to feel that I still have a mission. I still have things I can contribute,
Yeah.
even though I certainly couldn't or don't want to work at the pace that I worked at for many years.
Yeah. No, well, I want to work at the pace that I'm having, as long as I have fun. If it becomes
Yeah.
too much, which, I also with clients, we want them to have a life, right? That's the other thing I think is
You don't want their life to be
sometimes
therapy.
focusing on the trauma. I mean, I only focus on trauma, and I think this is an important point in the service of having a good life. I am not
Yeah.
interested in exploring somebody's trauma,
For the sake of
oh,
exploring.
like I'm just, I'm happy to do, like, how does it get in the way of connecting with your kids? How's the way of
Right.
connecting with your spouse? How's of, being happy, content, productive? Um, that's what I'm interested in.
Right.
And living a fulfilled life. Otherwise,
Couldn't
who
agree more.
cares? And I was, I'm at the innovations conference as we're recording this, and Frank Anderson was just having a conversation about this, and I'm like, he's saying, well, we have to do this. And I'm like, yeah, Frank, I've been saying that for 40 years. I mean, um, it's, like in the old days, remember the old days with the whole false memory thing, which was, a problem that people were thinking was such a big problem. But in any event, the one piece of truth, I think, was that at the time, everybody was, you have to go and get your memories and like
Right.
give up your life to go get your memories. I'm like,
Yeah.
bad idea.
Yeah. I know, right. That was from the Courage to Heal, which uh, was our first.
Yeah. And I don't even think they meant that. I just think it got taken to an extreme.
Right. Well, I mean, I actually think they did mean it, but
Okay.
they were working with what little we knew then, and they were working on themselves
Right.
because they were really writing it about their own experience.
Right. And they weren't therapists. And the therapeutic community, I mean, this was early 1970s. There wasn't even a PTSD diagnosis until
Right.
1970.
Right.
So the context was there is no trauma. And so maybe they were like, the pendulum going, go, yes, there is.
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
all the new therapists don't even know anything about this. It's just history.
Yes.
God.
Well, that's probably good. That is probably good.
You think it is? I don't know. I think sometimes, knowing history, you should know your history so you don't repeat it.
Well, that's true. And the right, and that's really how we got focused as a field on the event memories and the remembering.
Hmm.
And it is good to remember that our sources weren't that good.
Mm,
And we actually didn't know anything.
right. And maybe in 30 or 40 years, they'll think even more about that now compared to what we, who
Right.
knows?
Maybe they'll think we don't know anything now.
Yeah, I remember this great scene from Star Trek episode, Star Trek 4, the movie where they go back in time and Dr. McCoy is just all upset about, modern medicine. He goes, what are you doing? Do you guys live in the Stone Ages? Because he's from 100 years in the future.
Uh, yes. Well, I, I don't think I can think about people 20 years from now thinking that we didn't know anything. That would be too demoralizing. I think I'll just think we've come a long way.
We have come a long way, at least, although, yes, we have. And
We have,
there's still more to go. At least
absolutely.
getting it out there because I'm still stunned at what, there's still a lot of people that don't have enough training in this kind of stuff.
Right,
I'm
right,
always surprised.
right. The fact that there is no graduate, you know, any graduate school focus on trauma.
Is that true? There's nothing.
There's still, I mean, once in a while, I'll hear, Smith College School of Social Work has added a non-required course on trauma
Really?
in case anybody's interested.
But yeah, I mean, when I graduate school they didn't have a course on addiction, not one.
No, right?
right? And I don't know if they have, and they didn't have a course on trauma. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go check.
Yeah,
That is kind of, crazy if
all right. It should be
as an
in,
as an elective, like if you're getting your PhD in psychology and clinical psychology and you don't have a course, several courses on trauma and and the neuroscience of trauma and all that stuff, that's malpractice.
right, right. Well, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but we,
Well, there you go. So we have a ways to go then. So
yeah, yeah,
shoot for it.
they're great. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being willing to take the time to
Pleasure. It's
chat.
great to chat
It's
with you.
great to see you and great to hear your ideas and your thinking.
Thank you very much.
And I assume that we'll put up for everybody your website and anything else that you would like us to
Great.
let people know about.
Well, since it's going to be, they're going to edit this, but since they're going to, this will be in the future, we'll deal with that when closer to when the time comes.
Okay. Okay. Have a wonderful conference.
Take care.